so forth. So for this solution that we're showing you today, there are 3 software package options, workflows. One of those is called Infinity, and so I'm going to show you Infinity here in a second. Then we're going to talk about MultiWorx, which is a plugin for Civil 3D. And then the last one I'm going to just briefly touch on is MS CAD, or MicroSurvey, which is a product that Leica owns. It's a CAD alternative for somebody that's not as familiar or already heavily invested with the Autodesk family of products. So I think what you've heard loud and clear up until this point is the beauty of the instrument is all of the data being together, right? So we've got points, we've got line work potentially, we've got scan information that's been collected, and then this ability to move around and have that stuff all be in coordinate systems. So I've got a couple different data sets to show you where we're going to show you some survey data and some scan database information working through the Nova from the field into the office. So let's start with Infinity. So Infinity is a viewer. You can do some adjusting of your survey database, if you will, inside of Infinity, but we'll create just a real quick demo project inside of Infinity. So this is Infinity. It's a standalone product. It's made by Leica. I think James was saying it's around a $1,200 piece of software. It's kind of like LGO. It doesn't do everything LGO does right now. I think in the future you might see those technologies blend together, but they needed to get this thing out there because it supported not only the points and the line work, but it also supported the scanning. When it comes to post-processing GPS, you still need a complement to it. You still need LGO to do that activity. Today I can't do that activity in this process. Okay. So we're going to create a new project. You can choose the kind of units that you want to work in. Go ahead and make a couple of those selections. It's small on the projector screen just because of the way the resolution on the projector works. So there's a couple of different ways you can work with the jobs. In this case, we've bundled the project up as an XML file for export off of the gear so that we can bring in all of that variety of data into the software. This is a roadway project. They did a couple of setups, a couple of scans, captured a road, captured the sides for the ditch, just to give you an idea of how to use it in this application. There are many others. Infinity allows you to do your adjustments. If you decide there's any sort of issue with the setup inside the equipment, you can go ahead and make adjustments inside of this software package and see all those adjacent points change. So I'll turn these panels off for just a second, just to give us a little bit of black space there. All right, so here's our project. Standard zooming tools apply. You can see these various setup locations. Here's one here. I've got a lot of points cascading out from there. You can see in reference the road that I talked about, the point cloud for each side of the ditch as well. And then you can look at these panels one by one. So the navigator over here allows you to understand that there is some point data, there is some image data, and then underneath here you can see the setups where the scans and some of the other points were taken by. So for example, if you wanted to turn off one part of this scan, let's turn off the north side. There goes that piece of the puzzle. There's the other piece of the puzzle that was collected separately at the end of this section is that top road surface. Then, if you wanted to, let's say, James mentioned resectioning earlier, if you wanted to go through a setup wizard, you could go ahead and pull up one of these setups and it will walk you through how to make any sort of adjustments, choosing some different options, choosing which points, observations you want to use, choosing which methods you want to use, if any of this stuff doesn't come in straight away right how you want it based on your field collection. You've got another panel over here that's got properties. So if you pick on one of these points. You can see everything there is to know about that point, how it was taken, what the point ID is, all of the angle and distance information, any coding that you're trying to use to automate some of your systems. You can also, in this properties panel, see some of the shots. So if I go to one of these setups, so each of the setups that I did the scanning from, you can see down here the small panoramic image that it takes as it was taking you through that scanning function. You can also bring those up through the images area as well. So there's more of a standard shot, and then there's more of the panoramic shot over there to the side as well. And then there's another way to check it out down through the inspector at the bottom. And again, it manages, okay, the scanning's on a tab. Here are my various scans, what they're called, which image it's using, time and date stamping, all the information that you want to know to tie that back. We've got a whole tab dedicated to all the point information, if there was any line work or area information collected. Again, you can see if it was a reflectorless shot that was taken. You can have properties up. You can see the coding. You can turn things on and off from a visibility standpoint. And then from here, you can export the project out in a variety of different formats. So when you guys were talking earlier about the scanning capability, it's all about, you got to start with the end in mind, right? How dense of a scan do I need? What are they going to use this data for? As I've collected all these points, this line work, how do I want to share this out with people in my office? So if I was going to Revit with a point cloud, I might use this PTS file format. If I was going to go to MicroSurvey or Civil 3D, I might use the DBX file, or I might use one of the XML file formats. So they give you a variety of different options depending on what kind of data you want to take and where you want to take it to. So this is Infinity. Again, it allows you to do the adjustments. It allows you to view the information that you've collected, make any sort of changes. You can see ribbon interface, very similar to what you're used to. So again, it's taking LGO, kind of giving it a newer look. Supports that scanning data along with all the other stuff. Doesn't have the post-process GPS stuff yet. You still got to do that in LGO, but later we feel this stuff will all come together. Allows you to run some reports off the data that you've collected. Allows you to take a look at the feature codes that you might have done, and that's how you visualize what you've collected and then decide how you're going to hand it off to somebody in the field. So that's Leica Infinity. MultiWorx is the next product that we're going to talk about. So MultiWorx is just a ribbon inside of Civil 3D. I'll show you Civil 3D 2014. The XML file brings the survey and the scan stuff in together. You could repair it or manipulate it if you needed to. Otherwise, you can just bring it directly in. So that's what we're going to show. So now I'm in Civil 3D 2014. I'm on the MultiWorx tab. So you can see across the top I have all my standard Civil 3D stuff. And then here's everything that has to do with the MS50. So opening up that job file as an XML. So we can start with that first. We'll take a look at one that we collected here. Let's go with this one. This one will take a minute. So one area is orientating yourself to the project. Another area is creating some clipping. All right, so this is the Holman storefront and the interior. Two different scans. Tommy did this from the outside. Tommy did this from the center. You'll notice down here, it's already in state plane coordinates because he used the GPS to set up the total station outside, and then he used the total station outside to get himself inside. So here's that opportunity that I was showing you in the field to work with the GPS on top, the GPS alongside, and then have some relevance to this building data as you're starting to bring it together. So here's the entire point cloud inside of Civil 3D, and you can take a look at it. Right now, we're viewing it in sort of an intensity visibility. So everything's red, yellows, and greens based on what kind of reflectivity I was getting from the laser. Sometimes you might prefer to take a look at the color coming off of the picture that's associated with the image, right, that comes with. Now for an interiors job like this, it's kind of difficult to see. So let's go back to the top view. Let's say we want to just create a little section right here. And now I can just look at a point on the, just a portion of the point cloud. Like so. So you can see that banner that was there, the cubicle wall, the desk. And because these are, because of the technology for the plugin, as I try and go to draw line work, I can node snap to any one of those points. Now it moves around, it responds pretty well considering that's a lot of point information. It hasn't created Civil 3D points to muck up the project with all of this erroneous information. However, there are ways that I can generate Civil 3D points, and you can come over here and I can say I want to establish a point, and I can go ahead and snap onto that, and I can tell it what it is. It's a ground shot, whatever the case may be. It goes ahead and picks up that elevation, and you're off and running. The other way you can take a look at this information, let's reset the clip. So here's all my points back again. As I can come in here and take a slice. So now we're just looking at the front, and then I can move this thing. So there's the signage, now there's the inside of the curtain wall, there's some counters, and you can continue to move this thing back. There's the total station. At some point we'll see Carol appear at the desk in the middle. At any point, again, you can come in here with 3D poly, and again, it depends on the density of your scan, but you can go ahead and draw yourself some line work. Oops. Utilizing this data. And there you can see that polyline, or that line work that we just drew. Let's look at another project. So I've got this one that's already set up.
This is cool.
So for those of you that do water treatment, things like that, here's the inside of a mechanical room. Again, I'll go to a top view.
Right.
Just take a small section out of this thing, and then we can take a look at it. So you can pick up the stairs. You saw earlier there was a little head wall in there. I sort of drew a line across the top of that. I used a 3-point circle to just start to establish a little footprint for the tank that's that's like a trash can or something. You start drawing on the steps there. Sometimes it's easier to turn it back this way, so I can see that differentiation that the laser's picking up for me from the yellow side of the stairs to the red that's on the face of those stairs, so I can get a little bit of different approach to it. Then you can go into the true space. So there's all this imagery that's still connected to the project, and so I can pick on one of these points in the point cloud, and I can say, well, show me the image. So now I can move around here, and if I've got a second monitor, you can see how I'm keeping those views coordinated. So zoom in, and I can see exactly what that looks like. What was the density on this scan, Tommy?
It was thin. It wasn't very.
It wasn't very high.
A foot by
right?
a foot.
So There's another way
It took
to...
about 35 minutes to do a dome scan in that room.
Well, if it's a foot by a foot, then how does it fill in the thing? Because a lot of that resolution is a lot less than a foot.
Because it's combining the image and the scan. Well, and remember now, that was at the furthest point. So as it gets closer to the, like James was saying earlier, as it gets closer, it gets more dense.
So this image of the scan has borrowed from the image from the camera?
It's utilizing that camera data to overlay so that when I want to look at it from a different visibility, if I want to turn it on to that true color setup, you can see that. And again, it's easy to identify where you set up the machines because you can see this little bit of circle that it doesn't collect. It can only drop down so far around it because it's scanning around. And this one was in an interior, so they just set up on a point. They called it, 5,000 by 1,000 or something like that. But
yeah, we didn't traverse it. It's just arbitrary.
Yeah, you could come in here and I could do some. Whoops.
But you could do that later.
Yeah, absolutely. Just do some arbitrary distances. So the ceiling height in there of about 16 feet. And this thing's about 30 feet across. And about 45 feet the other way. And again, you could go to the top. You can decide how, this one's nice and orthogonal, so it works well for, depends on how you want to slice it. So just set your slices, however thin you want them, and then you just set yourself on that front view. Actually, yeah, let's choose like this one. And then you just can kind of step your way right through the project. And then again, if you're looking for maybe an alternate, workflow, I'll close this one and start. This is MicroSurvey. This is also available for purchase. It's a Leica piece of software. It's a CAD engine. Has has a lot of similarities. And this supports just bringing the job file straight in. Don't forget to save the file first. So this is a local job. Some of you may recognize it. So once we create a drawing, we can just type EBX in. We can go ahead and launch on to one of these job folders. It's going to bring in any sort of points, any sort of line work. It gives me, in MS-CAD, it brings up all the side shots that are tied back to all the occupied points, and it gives me all the sort of information here that I can review. If I need to generate some cut sheets or something off of this information, I can do that. So it allows you to confirm your instrument setup, allows you to see if there's anything that needs to be adjusted before we get into the product. And then if we zoom extents here, we have a number of points. So you can see over here, if you want to work in the 2D world, we've got all these different points, and you've got, they shot columns, and they shot bottom of steel, and they shot grid locations, and all these kinds of things to help, the stairs, to bring some context to being inside this big cavernous place and trying to work on this one particular area. And then there's this point cloud tool that comes along with MS-CAD that allows you to actually come into this separate window and see there's that steel that they shot, the existing wall, the brick face over here. And again, they've got some line work tools that are very comparable so that you can come in here and say, all right, we're going to go ahead and trace.
Hey, I did that.
Here to there. Yeah, Tommy shot this one. And then I can go back to my window over here, and somewhere I've just traced. So this is arbitrary. It's not in state plane. We went across the street. This is a recognizable downtown building. And then you can see this yellow line that goes way off yonder. So this particular shot, if we pull up This reflector of the shot is 2,400 feet away. So here's the image, and then you see the little red crosshairs if you look really close, so you can actually see the corner of the building that he shot. Without the image on the gun, he would have never been able to see what the heck he was shooting way down the street there. So, you know, we're 2 streets away, and he shoots the corner of that government building. And outside of the software, this stuff works great too. So you come in here and you want to take a look at, maybe it was the interior job here. See, here's all these different panels of the panorama. We can just look at this. Let's see. So there's all the ceiling tiles, there's all the facade, everything put together. Parked car. And this one I kind of like because it actually shows you what he did on the gun. I think you guys just went through this out there, right? So when you establish that scan area, you're able to specify a polyline right on the screen there, and then that's what he told it to go to work on. And then, you know, let it do its thing. So when they were talking about underground utilities earlier, that idea that if I'm the CAD guy back in the office and I'm trying to make a 3D model of civil 3D pipes, let's say, to have this imagery so that I know how they shot it, what they shot, so I can start to, it's a little bit more difficult than it used to be when I was just connecting the dots. So now to be able to have the images to complement it gives me a little bit more context for the project because I wasn't actually out there looking at the thing inside of the ditch or whatever the case might be.